Have you ever felt like you're working harder and harder, but getting nowhere? Like the rich are getting richer, and you're just treading water? What if I told you this isn't just a feeling? What if it's the result of a deliberate, massive financial experiment that has been quietly reshaping our world for over a decade? This is the story of quantitative easing, or QE, and how it triggered one of the biggest, yet least understood, wealth transfers in modern history. And the most shocking part, it's still happening right now. To understand what's going on, we have to go back to 2008. The global financial system was on the brink of collapse. Banks were failing, credit markets were frozen, and the world was staring into an economic abyss. In this moment of crisis, central banks, like the US Federal Reserve, deployed a radical, unconventional tool: quantitative easing. The idea sounded simple, almost like a magic trick. The central bank would print new money digitally, of course, and use it to buy massive amounts of government bonds and other financial assets from commercial banks. The stated goal was to inject cash, or liquidity, into the banking system. The hope was that with all this extra cash, banks would be encouraged to lend more money to businesses and individuals at lower interest rates. This would, in theory, stimulate spending, boost economic growth, and pull us back from the edge of a depression. On the surface, it seemed to work. A total collapse was averted. But beneath the surface, something else was set in motion. Something that would profoundly alter the very fabric of our economy. So, how did this rescue mission turn into a massive wealth transfer? It's all about where that newly created money went. Think of it like this. The central bank didn't just hand out money to everyone. It injected it at the very top of the financial system. The primary beneficiaries were the large banks and financial institutions that sold their assets to the Fed. But what did they do with all that new cash? They didn't just start handing out cheap loans to Main Street. Instead, a huge portion of that money flowed directly into the stock market and other financial assets. Why? Because with interest rates pushed down to near zero, traditional safe investments like savings accounts or government bonds offered pathetic returns. Investors, now flush with cash from QE, were forced to seek higher returns elsewhere. They piled into stocks, corporate bonds, real estate, and private equity. This created a massive surge in demand for these assets. And what happens when demand skyrockets? Prices go through the roof. This is the core of the wealth transfer. Who owns the vast majority of stocks, bonds, and real estate? It's not the average person. It's the wealthiest 10%, and especially the top 1%. As the stock market soared to record highs year after year, their net worth exploded. A billionaire with a massive stock portfolio saw their wealth multiply, not necessarily because the companies they invested in became fundamentally more valuable overnight, but because a fire hose of newly created money was pushing up asset prices across the board. Meanwhile, what happened to the average person? The person whose wealth is tied up in their salary and a modest savings account. Their wages barely budged, and the interest earned on their savings, it was practically zero, thanks to the very same policies that were making the rich richer. In fact, they were losing purchasing power, because when you create trillions of new dollars out of thin air, you devalue the existing dollars in everyone's pockets. This is the hidden tax of QE. Inflation, the cost of everything from groceries and gas to rent and tuition, began to climb. So, while asset owners were celebrating record gains, regular savers and wage earners were getting squeezed from both sides. Stagnant income and a rising cost of living. This wasn't a side effect. It was a direct consequence of the policy. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that was an emergency measure for the 2008 crisis. Surely it stopped, right? Wrong. This is perhaps the most crucial part of the story. QE never really ended. It became the go-to solution for any and every economic hiccup. Market dips a little. More QE. Economic data looks soft. More key. Then, in 2020, the world faced another crisis, and the QE machine was put into overdrive. In a very short period, central banks created trillions more dollars, dwarfing even the response to the 2008 crisis. The result was a repeat of the last decade, but on steroids. We saw one of the fastest and most speculative asset bubbles in history. Stocks, cryptocurrencies, real estate, everything went parabolic. The wealth of the world's billionaires skyrocketed. At the same time, the rest of the population was hit with the most aggressive inflation seen in over 40 years. That spike in your grocery bill, that surge in gas prices, that was the bill for a decade plus of easy money finally coming due. The system effectively transferred purchasing power from the hands of the many to the asset portfolios of the few. So, what is the hidden cost of all this? It's more than just numbers on a balance sheet. It's the erosion of the social contract. It creates a tutored economy, one for the asset owners who ride the wave of key-fueled bubbles, and another for everyone else who pays for it through inflation and a higher cost of living. It discourages saving and encourages risky speculation. Why work hard and save your money when your savings are being devalued every day, while speculators are getting rich overnight? This fosters a deep sense of unfairness and instability. It makes it harder for young people to buy a home, save for retirement, or even start a family. The wealth gap widens, not necessarily because of a lack of effort, but because the very rules of the economic game have been tilted to favor capital over labor. We are living in the direct aftermath of this grand experiment. While central banks are now trying to reverse course by raising interest rates, the effects of this massive wealth transfer are already baked into our society. Understanding this mechanism isn't about being cynical, it's about being realistic. It's the first step toward demanding a fairer and more stable economic system for everyone, not just for those at the top. Thank you so much for watching. This is a complex topic, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Did you feel the effects of this? If you found this video insightful and want to understand the forces that truly shape our world, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Your support helps us keep making this content. See you in the next video.